Hello, Oracles, and welcome to our Friday Night Live. We have Nick from Investing Against the Grain and Vinny from Investment Club. Welcome, gentlemen. How's it going today?
It's Friday.
Yes, I was just going to say.
Got some
we have
green
made
at
it through the
the
week.
tail end of the week there, so pretty
Yeah.
good.
Now, Nick, where do you live? Are you down in Florida?
Yeah, I'm in St. Petersburg, Florida. So
Okay.
if you don't know where that is, it's in the Tampa Bay area. So Tampa Bay is a bay. So there's surrounding areas. So Tampa's on one side, St. Pete's on the other side. And I live in downtown St. Pete. Another way to think about it, it's where Kathy Wood's ARK Invest is headquartered now.
Oh, very nice. I remember you were saying the other day that you saw her walking her dogs, and you're like, let me not say hi.
Yeah, my wife and I were walking. My wife immediately, she was on a phone call, and she immediately recognized her voice. I'm like, oh god, that is her. So it was, it was a little weird.
Though.
Like nobody realized who was walking around, but there's Kathy Woods walking around.
That's pretty awesome. So now, did you get hit by the hurricane?
I think it was more of a tropical storm by the time it got to me, but yeah, we got a little bit. So, but everything's good here.
I was gonna say it's coming through here right now. I don't know if it's hitting you, Vin. Vin and I are pretty close to each other up here.
Yeah, it's been pouring. It's funny. I actually almost moved to St. Petersburg. We'll have to talk about that sometime.
Oh,
I was very close.
Where are you guys at? Carolinas?
I'm in New York.
I'm in Connecticut.
Oh, New York. Oh, okay, gotcha. My sister-in-law. That's weird to say. She lives in West Hartford.
Oh yeah, my brother's actually over in Avon.
That's
I know a lot of people from West Hartford. Yeah,
nice.
Small world. So wild week we've had for Tesla this week. My goodness. Obviously, a lot of Twitter drama going on that is not always the most pleasant to deal with right now. And I don't want to talk about it too much because I think a lot of people are starting to get sick of it. But to get your guys' feedback on what you think is going on with Twitter and how long do you think it's going to last before we can get back to the glory days of Tesla again?
Yeah, I think you're going to have at least 1 month where this is going to be a huge focus for Elon. We're going to see it all day, every day, all the fun headlines nonstop. And that's going to go on, I think, for a good month. And then what I hope is he can put it on somewhat of an autopilot, no pun intended there. And, we'll go back to normalcy because that's the way I'm looking at it. A lot of people, everybody, I get it. The people that are very unhappy about this. But to me, it's if this is 1 week, if this is 1 month and, that's it. And then, I think he's doing both at the same time, but I understand the arguments being made. But I think he's earned the right to do what he pleases for, a short time. And, Tesla, we know, is well ahead. And I think it also speaks to, it would almost be bullish to see him be willing to take a step away and just show that Tesla is that well of an oiled machine that without the general, we're still going to kick everybody's butt.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take a little bit of a contrarian view, except for your last point there, which I think is the most important point. But I don't think this is going to wrap up anytime soon, much to a lot of people's dismay. I think this is going to take a while. And because Twitter is so no pun intended, it's so public, even though it's private now, nobody else has anything else to talk about. Right. So when it comes to Elon, this is such low hanging fruit for media to talk about and get clicks. It's going to be the same thing over and over. Every feature change, anything that happens, anybody tweets something that's fallacious. It's no different than a Tesla vehicle gets in an accident when there's hundreds of thousands of accidents that happen every single day. But it's Tesla and it's Elon, so it gets in the news. So same thing. Somebody says something that's racist or anti-Semitic or something, and it's going to be reported. Whereas before, those things wouldn't have been given as much attention. I think they will now, and Elon will be in the headlines, and it'll be this thing that just keeps happening because it's what the media does. But I think the bigger real message to take away from it is exactly what you're saying at the end there, Vinny. And it's that I think what's going to happen is people are going to realize that Elon doesn't need to sit there 24/7 working at SpaceX or Tesla, and that it will still be fine. It'll still be solid. They'll still keep moving forward. And the best part about that, or the most important, significant takeaway from that, is this whole key man risk issue kind of fades away. In my opinion, I think it's very obvious who the successor is. I think it would very obviously be Drew. I could be wrong about this, but to me, it seems beyond obvious. And so I just think that it's going to be a good look in the long term, but I don't think this is going to get silenced anytime soon. Elon's going to tinker. He's going to iterate. It's what engineers do. And he's a product guy. He's an engineer guy. And it's just going to keep going. But it's all guessing. We're all guessing.
I should have prefaced earlier what I said was my very optimistic bull case. And I would say what you just said, yeah, that's the bear case. I'm just hoping we don't go that way. But yeah, definitely agree with what you said. And the other thing too, yes, I mean, I would ask, like, what does that mean to you? Is that 6 months? Is that 2 years, or like until it's perfect?
As far as the news and all the drama,
the news, yeah,
probably anywhere from 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, because I recognize that as well. What I hope would start to happen, and I think that this obviously, yes, this isn't something that would happen in 6 months, but we go a year or two out, that it's advertising in a positive way, because obviously I think short term people are gonna read the headlines, believe all the clickbait. Longer term, I would put faith in the American people to like look it up and start to realize the facts of the matter of like, oh, look at this company. Teslas are the safest car on the road. Oh, no, they don't actually explode. Gas cars are actually 10,000 times more likely to explode. I would have to hope that these tactics aren't going to work for a year, 2 years. But again, my bear case, they do.
Yeah. So let me dive a little deeper on my thoughts on that. So when I say a year or two, I think it'll be a year or two before I think Twitter will be able to be ran the way kind of SpaceX is without Elon's intervention, or even less than SpaceX, right? Where he can essentially prop up a team there to take ownership and lead, and then Elon, just does what he does, like he does with like Neuralink, Boring Company, etc. I think that'll be a year or two to get to that place. As far as like news and anything that comes out like that, I don't think that's ever going to stop as long as Elon is still portrayed as the villain. Now, once you get a new villain, then this all stops. But it's just a matter of when's the new villain, right? We went from Donald Trump to Joe Rogan to Elon Musk. So it's just like, who's the next villain? And that's what you got to wait for.
Yeah,
He's the flavor of the week.
I thought about it this morning. You said intervention, and comparing Tesla and their operations to FSD beta. As we get longer and longer into FSD, you have less interventions that you need to make. I think with Elon going over to Twitter right now, it's showing that there are less interventions that Elon needs to make in Tesla itself. So again, taking away that key man risk. When you have Elon not having to be as involved in Tesla, that really just shows that Tesla can run on its own. That removes that whole piece right there. So I know Farzad had mentioned it the other day. If Elon's going to be focused on Twitter basically for the rest of this quarter, most likely, when we get to Q4 numbers for Tesla, we're going to see some awesome stuff coming through. And we can all say, well, hey, Tesla did this with Elon being distracted, that everybody said, over at Twitter. That's going to bode very well for Tesla.
Yeah, it's going to be like a balancing act. Ideally, if we could just get the best ratio of proving the key man risk false and not destroying public perception. Somewhere there's a good happy medium that's achievable.
Yeah, again, wow, I can't believe I'm sounding like the pessimist here. This is weird. I would say, Tim, to your point, I would say if that happens, that narrative, it wouldn't happen based on Q4 would be my prediction. It happened Q1. The reason is because I can already see the headlines. Tesla misses on their 50% year over year projections due to Elon being distracted with Twitter. Like I already see it.
Yeah.
Like they're not going to bring into context about Giga Shanghai. They're not going to bring in the context that Zach guided for just under 50%. They're not going to give any of that context. It's just that's a juicy headline right there. And I don't know. Maybe I am just overly pessimistic when it comes to media, and I just think they're ultra nefarious. But I just feel like that's just too juicy of a headline.
No, you're spot on. I have no doubt that's going to happen. And of course, if they hit 50% deliveries, then they have nothing.
Okay, that will be crazy, and that might be All right. So I haven't made a video about this or anything, but when Elon wrote false today on the whole report about sending vehicles over to the US, and the fact that I guess nobody really knows at this point after watching Rob's video today, but maybe not as far as these extra discounts that are coming for Tesla in China. But it seems like they're going to try to surprise. At least that's what it seems like. If they do and they hit that 50% number, yeah, all right, that's a whole different conversation.
Oh, yeah,
that's bonkers.
But I think you're right. And personally, I like to do basically the same thing you do. You know, I talk about it on here all the time. I prepare for the worst and hope for the best. So I think about things like when Chicken Genius came out and said 140, I'm like, I put in the back of my head as it's a possibility, but you know, I don't bank on it. But at the same time, you got to have that out there as a reality, as a possibility. And so I think you're absolutely right. I think if they do end up coming in with those numbers, we're going to get some ugly stuff coming out from the media. And it's going to be ugly at that time for whatever reason. And like you said, that's what they do. That's their job. They come out, clickbait headlines. It's horrible to think about. But again, for Tesla investors who see what's really going on long term for the company fundamentally, for me, it's a great buying opportunity.
Yeah. As far as the stock price goes, in my opinion, if you just own shares and you're not at an age where you're already retired or like planning on retiring tomorrow, next year, none of this should even matter to you.
Yeah.
The only place it matters right now is for people who have options and they're trying to figure out, what do I do with this? Do I just close it out, take the loss? Do I roll it out to try to protect? Because I know this is so undervalued. Eventually it has to correct. You know, those are the people who have issues. I mean, I'll be transparent here. I've lost hundreds of thousands in options. I've made hundreds of thousands in options, but right now I'm not in the making phase right now. And you know, I recommend people don't really play with options, especially not right now. But, you know, historically options have been great with Tesla. But those are people that are really dealing with a lot of the stressors of all this. But if you just have shares, who cares? Like, really, who cares? Like, long run, we know what it's going to be. We know it's undervalued. You're not losing anything unless you sell. And why would you sell? I mean, I guess people are getting laid off left and right now. So, you know, I guess that's a whole nother dynamic. But if you've got your job and you live within your means, and like, I don't understand why it would be an issue for anybody.
I think the only way it becomes an issue, it kind of relates back to what you said earlier, is how effective all of the clickbait is going to be. And people are like, actually get scared out of it and like, whoa, like, because all we need is the headlines to start. You saw it already last week was like Biden says Elon Musk should be investigated for his relationships with foreign governments. It was taken out of context. And someone had asked him as a question, but that's not how the headlines are phrasing it. And people start seeing stuff like that. And now it's like, wait a minute, is my investment actually at risk to these unforeseen factors here? And, you know, I hope we don't go that way, but I think that could be another big thing that does start shaking out even the more seasoned people who like have our long-term, you know, they're really getting worried.
Yeah, I don't know. I think long-term people are going to stay long-term. I don't, all this is noise. I mean, if you just think about it, think about everything we've gone through. Just think about that. And Tim, I know you've talked about it a lot, everything we've gone through, but more importantly, think of all of the positive catalysts that we have like check marked off, yet the stock has not reacted to that once. It's not a single thing. Not the split, not Berlin, not Austin, not record production, not FSD updates, not investor grade. I mean, nothing. It has never reacted at all. And so, but we've taken all this pain. So eventually, I mean, it's just so lopsided.
Oh, yeah.
Something has to give eventually.
Yeah, when the share price doesn't match the fundamentals of the company,
yeah,
that's big. And of course, a lot of these fundamentals, the things that we have coming up for catalysts, you know, some people are like, well, they haven't come to fruition yet. People are like, well, is the Cybertruck actually coming? We saw the job getting posted. That's awesome. So we can see it coming. We know it's coming. FSD hasn't been solved yet. When's it going to get solved? Elon said it was going to be now. So I think we're going to run into that exact situation. I can't remember who posted it about the parabolic jumps that we see in Tesla. And it's like, we're in that sideways point right now. And all of a sudden, everything is going to click all at once, and we're going to get that parabolic jump again.
Yeah. No,
I also think to an extent, you know, even if we got that great news in a bear market, everything on that list could have come to fruition for the positive. And just being in a bear market, like, it's still not going to matter. Whereas go back a year, you know, end of 2021, the Hertz deal which was not, got a huge reaction. Market cap goes up 100 billion. In a bull market, it's going to react irrationally to the positive. In a bear market, it's not going to matter, is at least how I see it playing out so far. So I feel like we're at the point now. I mean, while the Cybertruck would be very like a great sign, I feel like the headlines are still going to, for like the, everyday people that don't track it as closely, are going to say, oh, they just brought the Cybertruck out. Chevrolet's already got theirs out for a year. Ford Lightning's been out for a year. And like, it still might not cause a sensational reaction if we're in a bear market.
Yeah. So I agree with you as far as the bear market. Tesla will not do anything as long as we're in a bear market. Okay. So let's work backwards. Okay. So what is creating the bear market? The Fed. Okay. Why is the Fed doing this? Okay. Inflation. So what we just got from the CPI numbers, this is very bullish. Okay. This is a great sign that we are getting close to the end of this. Hopefully it's only, everybody keeps saying like the Fed needs to see more than one good report. And I keep on just slamming my head against a wall. What are you talking about? We got CPI 9.1. That was the peak. Then we got 8.7. Then we got 8.5, then 8.3, then 8.2. Now we're at 7.7. Like, what do you mean one report? We're trending the right way. And so once the market, and this is why the market's rallied a few times, right? It's why it rallied in July, because the market was like, hey, look what's going on. We're going the right way. And then the Fed said, no, this isn't fast enough. That was the new thing. So to me, once the market's ready, the market's ready to get ahead of whatever happens. Once the Fed essentially confirms this, in my opinion, that's the beginning of the bull market. So I agree with you. Nothing's going to happen until after we're out of this bear market. But it's the Fed and CPI and inflation. That's what has to change. But once that happens, Tesla will be the leader in my opinion, out of all growth stocks. They're the ones that are extremely suppressed. They're the ones that are going to be dominating the segment of EVs. They're going to be the Apple. I know people hate these type of analogies, but look, we've seen this enough time in history. We've seen dominance with Google. We've seen dominance with Apple. We've seen, just all these tech companies, they keep these first mover advantages. They own the market. They take all the margins. And so I'll shut up now, but I really think that's the big thing that we have to wait for.
Oh yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And I talk about it all the time. It's like everybody's beating up Tesla. Tesla's down 50%. I'm like, yeah, Google's down 40%. Amazon's down 40%. Like the NASDAQ was down 30%. It's not like it's Tesla alone. So like
it generates the clicks.
Yeah, exactly. And when we were in that bull run with Tesla coming up, guess what all the mainstream media was talking about? How awesome Tesla was. So it's like, that's again, going back to Nick's point, when you're talking about the mainstream media, they're going after the clicks. What's the hot thing right now? The hot thing right now is how bad Elon is. So when things turn around and Tesla stock is booming again and Tesla's awesome, all of the media is going to be out there touting Tesla and how great they are. And that's exactly how it's going to run. That's just how mainstream media runs.
Yeah, I think when it comes to Wall Street, at least, is the earnings and the EPS. It doesn't matter what else they do, but they just want to see the bottom line. And that's what separated the companies that are in the green this year from the ones that aren't.
Yeah, and that's really what it comes down to. You look at the financials. What are the financials looking like? What is the company looking like? How are they doing? And as Elon tweeted out today, he's like, all of my companies are well positioned. So who knows what he sold all of this stock for, when he's going to end. But if he is saving it up just to be able to float Twitter by so they don't go bankrupt, then yes, all of his companies will be well positioned because all of them are very cash flow. Well, Tesla's very cash flow positive right now, but the other ones are in good shape. So even then on their earnings call, they had mentioned how Tesla could do a $5 to $10 billion buyback next year, despite any economic downturns that we get further from where we already are. Like, how much stronger could you possibly be?
Yeah, I'm checking to see if there's any new Form 4s. You made me think about that.
I just checked before we got on.
Yeah.
Let me see.
I agree. It's such an interesting time where, I still believe and what I was just saying, that narrative about we went from Trump to Joe Rogan to now Elon. It's like they had to find a new boogeyman, and the boogeyman became the billionaires. And who's the biggest billionaire? Well, it's Elon. So that's the boogeyman for us now. But just contextualize this. The whole Ukraine thing and what Elon did with Starlink, and still they're making him out to be this anti-Semite narcissist billionaire who just cares about himself. It's the most backwards thing in the world. But the guy's doing the most good out of any company or individual for Ukraine, and still he gets this persona of I don't know. It's like Beauty and the Beast, and all they see is the beast.
It's that, and nothing about the last decade. If it weren't for him, there wouldn't be electric cars. There wouldn't be any of this stuff.
Yeah, and the thinking about
goal.
like I said,
we had Mary though. We had Mary.
True, they did lead. They did lead.
But maybe the next bad guy that comes along is going to be for the next presidential election. That could be what ends up taking this hood off of Musk, and people aren't going to be hating him anymore for it. Let's see, jumping into questions. So I wonder if he's buying a mining company. So obviously we know something is coming. He's talked about it plenty of times, especially with lithium refining. I don't know if, and so the whole thing with him selling shares, he's not going to be buying a mining company or a lithium refining with that. He would buy it through Tesla. Tesla would be doing it themselves. So do you think we're going to hear about that before the end of the year?
I think we'll hear about that whenever Master Plan 3 happens. I don't think we'll hear about it before. Maybe. Yeah. I don't know when that's going to come out. I mean,
recent events have definitely maybe delayed it a little.
Yeah.
Actually, my personal feeling on that is I think he had a lot of things in place. And then once he realized he was going to have to buy Twitter, he started putting that all together. I think Twitter and what is going on there is going to be part of Master Plan Part 3. I think that's why we've got the delay on it.
Really? So, yeah, I've heard people say similar things like that. I think he's going to keep everything separate. I don't think he's really going to intertwine all of these. Like I've seen people like stitch like how these can all work together. I mean, it's obvious, tunnels, you got cars and, satellites with internet. Like, I mean, yeah, I get that whole narrative, but I think he's going to keep them pretty separate for now, at least. But to answer the question, I don't think they'll buy a mining company. I think that they will just get into it themselves. And the reason is, historically, normally when you buy any company, it doesn't go well. It's very, very rare that acquisitions go well. And that's why you see a lot of companies decide to build tools from internally. Like normally people say like you buy a company when you don't know how to innovate anymore. Or you become a Me Too company where like, oh, they're doing that. Well, me too. I'm going to buy this company to do that. And that's where companies go to die. So I doubt they do that. It's too hard. You have to reverse engineer, not so much the company itself, but the people. You have to change how they work, how they think and everything. And I think Elon's already seen the struggle with that just with Twitter alone. And those are supposed to be people in tech who are forward thinking and fast moving. Good luck with old people who are, blue collar workers. I mean, if you've never had a blue collar job, then like, you don't understand. Like some people are really ingrained in the way things are done and they don't want to change. So I think they do it their own way.
It's like you said, Peter Lynch was always used to say, if a company, if they're starting to do acquisitions, they don't even want to invest in themselves. Why should I, and again, like Tesla is one that's always, they do it all in-house and because it's all the first principles and the vertical integration. And it's like you said, it works out better. A lot of times these acquisitions don't work out either because the company just gets too big or it doesn't fit right.
Yeah. It's like, oh, go ahead.
It's inefficient.
Sorry. Yeah. So Farzad had actually mentioned the same thing when we were talking about, new factories coming. And I'm like, with the money they have and how fast they want to move, if they put up, 5 to 7 factories in the next few years, he's like, they could do it physically, but trying to keep the culture steady as it is right now within all of those factories is very challenging. That's the hard part. And to your point, Nick, that's what it is it's the culture of what is going on in the company. That's the most important piece. You can throw up a building, you could put up machinery, but to be able to have the culture stay steady and strong as it is, that's the hard part.
Yeah. Yeah. And to your point too, if Tesla was going to take that approach of buying another mining company, then they would have taken the approach of, okay, let's buy Mercedes. Let's buy, like they would have bought a car company, but that's not what they do. They started off as a tech company that decided to get into cars, and everybody was like, you're crazy. What are you doing? You need to partner with these people. And they did for a little bit. And then they decide, we don't need to do that. Right.
Yeah,
so
And just like we saw with Fremont, I mean, they learned it firsthand. They bought Fremont from Toyota and GM, and it's not going to be as good as if they just built it from scratch, as we've seen with Shanghai, Austin, and Berlin. So it's going to be the same thing. If they're going to do and go into lithium refining or mining, it's going to be easier just to build from the ground up and start from scratch than take somebody else's mess and try to clean it up.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't buy a battery company, right? I mean,
yeah, that's what I was going to say was, if anything, I feel like it's easier to acquire a smaller and maybe software company versus something like mining. It's just too hard to like add that to the, like, it's like you're saying, it's easier to, if you're going to do that, do it in house is historically how they've done it, at least.
Yeah, and I think like with Elon buying Twitter, he said he would do his own startup, but buying Twitter would speed it up by 3 to 5 years. And I think that's because they already have the user base there. To be able to build up a user base on a new platform of that size would take at least 3 to 5 years to get there. So I think he knew he was getting into a headache and a mess, but having that user base already there in that data. And if you guys watched the live stream that we had with the ladies the other night, Jen bringing up that point with, the fact that they could take the data set from Twitter, put it over into Optimus, and that's what's going to give it that human AI characteristic. I think that's a great point. I would love to see if that's going to happen. I don't know. You guys let me know your thoughts if that you think is going to happen. And that's why he was buying it, for one of those reasons.
Well, the whole thing with Twitter, I don't know. I got to think about it.
Well, I think buying Twitter made sense for obviously the reason you just mentioned there about, you're buying the platform, the people already on it, but it's also the brand, right? You don't always just buy something because it's valuable. Like, to create a brand like that and awareness around what it is, it's already there's something beautiful and special about what Twitter is. There's a reason why you see all of these other companies and brands actually engage on Twitter, but you don't see them do that on Instagram or Facebook. Like, Twitter has become something special and different, and that's what you're buying, that intangible. And so it's just like all these other car companies trying to be a Tesla like, but they don't have that. I don't know, I'm going to sound lame, but the je ne sais quoi, that is what that magic about what makes that platform what it is. And so I think that's a big reason why he bought Twitter. And that was more of almost like what's the word I'm looking for? Like I don't know, a bigger thing. It was like a social good thing he was doing. It's not like this thing he wanted to build and create. It's just something that he thought had to be done because all the way we're canceling people and silencing people. And it's like, what is happening here? This is insane.
Yeah, the people's voices are getting taken, and he feels like he's doing the right thing to give it back. And one thing I thought about too with Twitter is, it's not like Elon's going in there. So many people are saying, well, Elon's going to go in there and just clean up Twitter. He's not going in there to clean up Twitter and make it a better Twitter. He is going in there to disrupt. That's what Elon does. He disrupts things. So that's why he's talking about making it like a WeChat. It's going to be your everything platform. So, that's why I think there's so much more involved that people aren't seeing in the bigger picture right now. And it's going to be ugly. I personally think it's going to be at least 3 to 6 months before the ugliness ends. So,
yeah, I agree with definitely parts of what you guys are saying. And I think, going back to, like, if he were to start his own platform, it wouldn't have solved what he was actually trying to solve, but it also would have just created an even more siloed landscape, which is the opposite of what we want and need at this point, because people wouldn't go to that platform. They would stay on Twitter, and we'd still be like divided. I think that's another one of the goals. And the other thing too, like you kind of touched on this, Nicholas, is there is something special about Twitter, that there's real business value there. Like, just think about YouTube is the only other one that as far as, I mean, TikTok is newer, but let's just say YouTube and Twitter, if someone's starting a business, if someone's serious, if someone's selling a product, where are the platforms they're doing it on? YouTube, Twitter, how many businesses have been made possible that you could begin using Twitter? And so there's something about it that is more valuable when you compare it to either other types of, traditional social media companies, or just the copycats of Twitter who haven't been able to resonate that same inner juju. But there's something there that, obviously, if all this money is already being made on this platform, and I think that's where it comes in, how he had said with the Ron Barron interview, Elon was saying that he had this grand vision for PayPal 22 years ago that was never fully realized, and nobody's done it yet. And that's also a potential, in the longer term for Twitter. And I just think it's a full picture of all those things.
Yeah, I got a question for you guys, but before I do that, and I just want to say one more thing on this whole Twitter thing. Um, I think the other big reason why he had to buy Twitter instead of making his own thing, imagine he made his own social media, his own platform. Do you think he would have gotten AOC on that? No, she would not have joined. So he almost had to buy Twitter to get the people who disagree with him because you need them on there. You need
Valid.
that. And so that, again, goes back to the whole idea of free speech and trying to get everybody on there. And you have free speech if even the people I disagree with and I don't like are allowed to say what they want to say. And that is what he bought. He bought that. So I think that becomes very powerful.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
I was bound to have one. I do have a question for you guys, though.
Yeah.
So let's go back on to talking about Tesla.
Yes.
So we had these rumors about all these Chinese employees, people from Shanghai coming over to Fremont. And maybe you guys have read something that I didn't read, but what do you guys make of that, or what are your thoughts on what's going on there? Because I find that very interesting.
I think it's legit. Actually, we were talking about it with Alexandra, and because that's what she does is she helps people get visas and green cards to come over here to work in this country. She said that it had to be a nightmare to get them over here, but I think it's legit because thinking about Fremont, obviously it's a factory that is limited just because of its being an old factory. And so I'm thinking that they're trying to come over here and they're saying, how can we squeeze out more production from Fremont? And hey, Shanghai is clearly just cranking things out. Let's get some of the brains from Shanghai over to Fremont, see if they can say, hey, these are the things we do over in Shanghai. You guys could do those over here, and that could help speed up production as well. So I do think it's real, but obviously there's no confirmation, but I do think that's real.
Yeah, I think that would make a lot of sense. That what is this business all about? Continuous improvement, continuing to optimize things. So yeah, if it's worth it, if they can come over, teach them a few things that make things 0.5% more efficient, it's worth it. And this is how we just keep building that beautiful automotive gross margin, percentage point by percentage point. And it's the same thing you're seeing with Twitter, that he allegedly brought in the Tesla engineers because they're going to, do what they do best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the engineers were brought to Twitter too because they weren't sure about the fallout. So they wanted to make sure the platform was going to still be running. So I had no doubt that was one of the reasons they brought them in. Plus, now all the Tesla engineers can see what the underlying program is when it comes to Twitter to see how they can tie it in with Tesla. Because I have no doubt in the future they're going to work together at some point. So now they can see all of that. And so then going to Fremont and their production, let's go to Karav here. So Karav, Nick, if you don't know, he is Tesla Karav. He's like our little, our personal own little Troy Tesla-like. Kid's 15 years old. He's amazing. He does production, and like his spreadsheets for his valuation model are way better than mine. Is outstanding. So out of you guys, who is the most bullish on Q4 delivery and production, and what are your guys' numbers?
Oh, that's a tough one.
That is a tough one. I mean, I don't do the quarterly projections because I just focus on the long term, and and I leave it to the people who are much more skilled at that than me. But I will say, for the annual production, fall just short of that 50% target growth rate.
I think even for production, for production, I've got them at 483,000 right now. I'll be adjusting it this weekend because I update it every weekend based on numbers. But so I've got 483 for production and probably about 450 for deliveries. I think they're going to smash delivery numbers because I know analyst consensus right now is 432. So I've got them at 450, beating consensus.
So I don't have a delivery production or a delivery number, but I can kind of assume one. My production right now is at 454,000 for Q4. And I mean, it's not rocket science the way I come up with this. China just did 88,000 in production. So I multiply that by 3, assuming that's what they do each month. And obviously, I'll change mine after we see what the November numbers look like. I'm hoping they're higher. That'd be awesome. But, just I'm estimating 88,000 for the first 3 or for this quarter each month. So that comes out to 264. Fremont, I'm assuming 140,000 just because we have more S and X going on. And we haven't had a 140 number in a long time. So it'd be good to see that out of Fremont. Although I do think that's a little high. Texas, I have at 25,000, which I think is also potentially a little high, but it seems like that should be really doable because assuming they hit their 5,000 vehicles a week by the end of the year, you have to imagine at least 2 weeks they hit that. So that'd be 10,000 right there. And you're telling me in the rest of the quarter they couldn't produce 15,000. So I feel like that should be doable. And then I have Berlin at 25 as well, just to be conservative. So 454 production for me. And then if you wanted a delivery number on that, I would say just take out like 20,000 for it being in transit. But I'm hoping to be able to like up those numbers with more data. But yeah, mine's not a real projection. Mine's just taking the data we know now and I extrapolate that out for the rest of the months.
It was so funny. I was on the live stream with Brian over at My Tesla Weekend and James Stevenson. And so like mine is, I'm very basic like you. I come up with, hey, what are we looking at right now trending on a daily production rate? Multiply that for the number of days in the month that they're actually going to be working. Take a couple of days out for downtime. That's my number. And I was like, it's pretty straightforward. And I go basically what Tesla has told us they're shooting for production. James goes into this very detailed analysis. And that's why he was off by 31 vehicles. The dude is spot on. But I was like, there's so many different ways that you can come up with this number and analysis for it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the KISS method for these things. You know, keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah,
and that's why I resonate a lot with like Warren Redlick and a lot of his napkin math for his things, because it's like, I mean, yeah, it's pretty straightforward.
Oh yeah.
So,
and I may not have been within 31 vehicles, but I was within 1%. So, and like I'm working 55 hours a week at my regular job. I don't have time to dive in and get all these spreadsheets put together. So like, and like Vinny said, I was like, I'll follow the guys like Karav and Troy Teslick and James.
They do a phenomenal job. There's no reason for me to
They do
try.
a great job. I'll try to do my best and see if I can get close to those guys. Otherwise, I let them do it for me.
What's the current Wall Street projection?
432. It's 432 for deliveries. Yeah, I don't know what their production number is, but
okay, yeah, that's right.
Okay,
I know where you saw that.
Troy posted that just today on Twitter.
I put this in the same bucket as earlier of they missed by 1,000. Tesla headlines. Tesla misses huge on delivery. The competition is here. The deliveries are slowing down. So I just like to think more long term.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to start rewriting all these headlines when they come out. So when they come out with those Tesla misses huge, I was like, huge buying opportunity. So I'm just going to start switching all the headlines around to what they really should read for long-term investors. Let me see here. So when is the stock price going to turn around? How many months out? When will we see 300s again? I think personally, if we end up getting another good CPI reading in December, we'll see 300s by the end of the year. If not, and we stick around that 7.5 to 7.7 range for December, it'll probably be Q2 of next year. Unless, of course, we get, if we do hit 50% year over year deliveries, we'll see it in January.
What do you think, Vinny?
I think that I'll just say the way I've been approaching the 2022 and especially like, you know, the next 6 months, let's say, I am still investing, but I'm being as cautious as I ever have. I'm putting just as much money to the side because I don't know. And I think 3 months from now, there's so many number of things that can happen. I know that, like, you know, it's always like this, but just right now, just where the entire globe is at, that it could just as likely go either way. You know, it's a lot better or it's a lot worse. So I've just personally, I know that, you know, I can't be dollar cost averaging. So I continue to do that. But for every Tesla I see on the road, I put $10 in. I see a lot of Teslas, folks. I live in New York. And then in the meantime, like, I'm just trying to, you know, have as much cash as possible for if 6 months from now we have sticky inflation, we start to get into stagflation. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I just want to be prepared either way. And I don't know. I think there is a scenario that inflation could stick around longer. And it didn't make me feel better. If you think about it, the Fed is not going to stop pushing until rates are back down to 2%. And every time historically that rates have been above 5 or 6%, they have to get the interest rate at least that high to bring it down. So I don't know. I'm not fully convinced that it's like we're almost out of the woods yet.
Yeah, just to contextualize this, and I don't know this for sure, but when we see the 7.7 CPI number, that's not the number that is being said needs to come down to 2%. The number would be core PCE. That's what Jerome Powell has alluded to. And core PCE right now, I think it's like 4.5, 4.6, something around there. And that's during his press conference. That's what he alluded to is what matters, that he wants to see that down at 2%. So again, he alluded to it. Doesn't mean that's exactly what he's looking for. Maybe they do want to see CPI 2%, but the bigger thing is the Fed, Jerome Powell wants to see PCE and PC core is what really matters. And the fact that we're at 4% and PCE core is like 4.5%, I don't think we have that much more to go. And I don't think, I mean, everyone keeps saying that inflation's sticky. Where is it sticky? Yeah. How is it not coming down? Is it not coming down as fast as you want? Sure. But where is it sticky? I don't see that.
Yeah, Nick, I remember you had posted a while ago just that, and you were saying, everybody's saying, inflation, we missed the numbers. You're like, but we're trending in the right direction. We are coming down. Like, that's what we want to see. It's moving in the right direction. And, and then, of course, the next big problem is the jobs, the hot jobs market. But we're already hearing a lot of employers out there right now not hiring for the holiday season like they had in the past. So that in itself is going to help with the jobs market cooling off also.
I would add too, it's not even so much just the inflation, but I want to say that in the last 120 years, outside of world wars, you never had the convergence of, I mean, obviously Cuban Missile Crisis, scenarios like that. But right now, just that any day China could turn on these zero COVID lockdowns and boom, like Shanghai is out. The fact that you've got the Ukraine war and how both of these things obviously impact the global supply chains. And at any moment, it's just still not clear of like, is it going to get better or worse? I'm just kind of giving an equal probability to either. That's just the way I've been looking at it, is because when you factor that in too, that's what worries me, is that's why this could potentially be more drawn out. It's just all it takes is like one of these things.
That's true. And we've seen quite a few black swan events like that this year. So you can't rule anything out. The one thing I do take from it, though, is businesses need to run and adapt. So what we saw with the COVID lockdowns back in the spring, a lot of companies figured out how to do a closed loop scenario like Tesla did. So I think if we do get a lockdown, it'll obviously be hurting for the companies, but it won't be as bad as we saw before unless it's super long and drawn out, just because they've figured out how to get through it and survive, even if they're locked down.
Yeah, I agree. There's been a lot of black swan events, a lot. But I think there are some that are very hyped up, and I think there's a very low probability of them. For example, China getting into this war with Russia and Ukraine. I don't see that happening. That's not the way the Chinese operate. That's how we operate in the West. Right. China is more of a
business,
a long-term. They're long-term investors.
Yes.
And they see the long game, and so like even with Taiwan, right. Right now that like literally the US or the White House or whoever is doing this, pushing for these chips to not be able to be sold there. They're just like poking at China saying, go ahead, take over Taiwan. You want these chips? You want chips? Go, they're just poking the bear. But China, it's just not how they operate, right? They're so much more strategic than that. So I don't think any of that is that big of an issue. It's not nothing, but I don't think they're going to take over Tesla or nationalize it. They would have done that with Apple a long time ago. They care too much. Their economy relies on us more than we rely on them, right? We consume. Right. That is how they need people to buy the stuff they make for their GDP. We're consumers. Like at the end of the day, like our country is not going to stop because we're not consuming. Now there are like, rare earth metals and stuff like that. Sure. Right. Like I'm not talking about everything, but the point is they're just as dependent as we are. And so you're not just going to screw that up. And all of our companies are starting to like have like disaster recovery plans, right? They're diversifying. China's not doing that, right? Who's China going to diversify to? No one.
Yeah.
What do you think about, would you put like refining in that bucket too? Do you think that that is blown out of proportion, or,
Oil?
you know, because just how the battery refining, the raw
Oh,
materials
batteries.
refining, all of that is done in China. And like, if they decided to stop exporting, like, do you think that that's realistic, or is that another thing that's assigned too much potential of happening?
So yeah, I don't think that'll happen. I think that's all these like doomsday things that would happen. I mean, look, China wants to grow. They want to be this world power. I mean, they essentially, have this like world dominance plan. You can't dominate the world if you're excommunicating the world, and especially if you're excommunicating the U.S. They want to influence us. I mean, look at what's happening with TikTok. If you go anywhere in Africa, South America, go to Europe, like you're seeing the Chinese influence everywhere. It's slowly expanding. So they definitely want to have exposure into the US. And again, it's the old adage, keep your enemies closer, right?
Yeah.
Keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. All right, well, you're not going to do that if you start excommunicating and not doing business with them. So it's overblown, I think.
Yeah, and
TikTok
you
really
gotta,
was a Trojan horse.
Yeah.
Like,
oh
this is
yeah,
like modern war could be
yeah, and
the
you got to
long
remember
term. Yeah.
when it comes to sentiment too, when things are negative, people think more negative things. So we're
Yeah.
in a bad scenario right now. So everybody's thinking, well, what's the worst case scenario? Well, how much worse can it get? Let's think of worse scenarios. Just like when you're going up and you get the FOMO, we're like, hey, this is great. How much better can it be? So it's just human sentiment, human behavior. That's exactly where we're at right now.
Yeah. And it can get a lot worse. Don't get me wrong. It's
Oh
not
yeah,
like everything's rosy. Like, it can get a lot worse. I mean, Russia could do something that draws all of NATO in, and then NATO's in there. And what does that mean? Does Iran come in and all of a sudden North Korea wants to test off their new nuclear weapon? I mean, like, yeah, everything can just go to hell for sure. But I think we aren't giving the Chinese enough. Like, we act like the Chinese are like the boogeyman in this country for some reason.
yeah.
And I'm not saying that their government doesn't do nefarious things. Our government does nefarious things. Like, let's not be fooled. I mean, it's Veterans Day, and I am a vet, but I'm not blind to the reality. I mean, look what we did in Iraq. Why are we in Iraq when Osama was in Afghanistan? I mean, like, you just look at all these things.
Yeah.
So, but the Chinese people, the culture there, it is good, and they're not all the government. And so for us to always make them the boogeyman, I don't know. There's definitely a disconnect there.
Oh yeah, and thank you for saying that. Happy Veterans Day to all the veterans out there. Nick, Jerry, I know you're on here as well, so happy Veterans Day to all of you guys.
Yes. Thank you, Nick, and definitely shout out to Jerry if he's watching. Happy Veterans Day.
All right, let's jump in. So this, of course, I just, this fell today. Thanks, guys. Wonder if there's any comments on recent FTX crash. How might this affect the Tesla story?
I mean, this is another one of those things that it's going to ripple into the market. I don't think it's going to be a huge deal, but we're seeing the same thing play out. Cryptocurrency firm goes under. Obviously, all these other banks, organizations, venture capital, lended, this, that. Now they have to sell their stocks. It could create some more downward pressure, but yeah, I mean, and this is what's crazy is, like, these are, like you said earlier, the black swans. How many can we even count on two hands? How many black swans we've had this year?
Once in a lifetime events happening 17 times in 1 year.
Yeah, I don't know much about this other than what I've seen, the headline news. So I don't talk about things I don't know much about. But I would say on the bigger picture, stuff like this is good to see. Whenever you see riskier things starting to, show their true colors, this is when you know that we're at that point where the Fed's seen what they want to see, and it's a sign that, all right, maybe we're starting to really trim the fat, if you will, from the investment community, and it's a sign of better things to come. So, I'm sure a lot of people are, going through bad times because of this, and I empathize for them. But stuff like this, I think, on the bigger spectrum, is a good thing to see.
Yeah, and Elon said it himself. Going through times like this, it's needed. There's a lot of zombie companies that are out there, a lot of companies that really shouldn't be companies anymore, and they're just, sucking the life out of the system. So it's not a bad thing to get rid of them, and the stronger going to survive. And if we see it going on for a long time, we might see that happen with some of the EV startups as well. You know, you don't want to see them go away. Obviously, it's not great for people to lose their jobs, but you know, it happens, and it's unfortunately a good thing for the economy long term. You need to clean it out. And so, you know, we saw it today. And of course, I'll be getting notifications from all of my cryptocurrency platforms, and they're like, oh, Josh, we know what's going on. We're good to go. Don't worry about us. Like,
you want to talk about the zombie companies and they just go away. This relates back to the US-China thing. This is what worries me. Are they just going away? GM, Ford basically have already gotten how many government bailouts? And this is another thing too, is like, well, US versus China.
Ford hasn't gotten any.
Yes. I'm sorry, that's right. Ford and Tesla, the only two, but GM at least, but and many other legacy players. But what worries me too is that our government, because of the way things are, is actually more in favor of keeping the zombie co's around, which make us less competitive at the expense of Tesla. Like, this is another, you know, going back to the Tesla scenarios there. Just, I think we're going to see a lot of headlines like this. But, you know, that's a concerning, just as in our competition, just as a global superpower of like, not like you said, China is a long-term investor. They're making 10, 20-year plans. They're sticking with this long-term goal. US is kind of clinging onto the past, and it's making us weaker almost.
Yeah, we've definitely got an old system, you know, just thinking about how frustrated I am with the government, how the government operates. My company right now, it's a 55-year-old company. I love the company. It's a great family-owned company. They mean well, but the systems are so old and they're so stubborn and won't change. And like, I just got a notification from the DMV saying that my emissions is late. And I'm like, well, of course I didn't remember. I'm never going to remember that. But like, you could send me a letter for when I'm late, but you couldn't send me a letter to remind me to go get it done the first time. Like, come on, man. You know, and these are just the systems that we're operating with. And like,
wait a minute, were you at a Tesla service center? If you had customer, if your experience was that bad, it must have been Tesla. Headline. I see it now.
Yeah. Why didn't Tesla send me an emissions letter for my car that I have? Seriously. And that's really what it is, you know, it's an old system. We don't want to change. I work in my business. We do construction retail. So I get, you know, municipalities coming in all the time, end of their fiscal year, and they need to spend their money. And they all come in and they're like, well, we have X number of dollars that we have to spend, because if we don't spend it, they're going to cut our budget for next year. So these guys come in and just piss their money away on whatever they can just so they can spend the money. I'm like, that is a horribly inefficient system. That is exactly why we have so much debt right now. That's
how the military works too.
Yeah. Oh, and we deal with the U.S. Navy up here also. I service the Navy all the time for stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's because if they don't use it, then they get less budget. It's such a antiquated way of doing it. It doesn't incentivize frugality. And if you're not incentivizing frugality, well then, I mean, they should be able to take any extra funds and put it in a piggy bank and then just have it there and let that grow. And maybe they can invest that, right? I mean, there's so much that could happen there, but it's not the way it works. It's
I was a teacher. Same thing. It's all these bureaucratic government organizations just inherently become less efficient. And yeah, it's a business that has, you know, a bailout. They have their own put built in.
You said you were a teacher, so you're not a teacher anymore?
Not anymore, no.
I know so many people who have quit being teachers in the last 2 years. It's insane.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I last year was the first year I left. So yeah, going through all the COVID and stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer to me. Like I witnessed it, like just how burnt out it made everyone, and the kids too. It's terrible what's happening.
Yeah,
we've got this.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah, I'm hearing like a lot of. Well, I don't know if this is what you're implying, but I've heard like a lot of the kids are just like when I grew up, when I went to school. I mean, I still think I'm like a teenager in my head, but when I was younger, like if you like screwed up or did something, it'd be like, go to the principal's office. And you're like, oh crap, like I'm in trouble. Or like if you got like a Saturday school referral, it's like, oh my God, I'm gonna get in so much trouble when I get home. Like this, my permanent record. But apparently now, like teachers aren't allowed to yell at kids. They're not allowed to like send them out of the classroom. Like it's like all this like bubble wrap has gone around, and it's just wild to me. I mean,
yeah, it's funny if you're a high school kid. I'm a college kid still at heart, but yeah, dude, what's crazy is like the problem is everything is the teacher's fault. The kid can do no wrong. Just this, and this is just societal. I see it not even just in schools. I see it with like family and just like kids these days. It is a lot different than when we were. I feel like such a boomer up here. It's a lot different than when we were growing up, but like it really is. And I think TikTok, all these things are exacerbating the issue too. But yeah, I mean it's tough, and it's a lot of like I come from a family of educators, and they really like were the ones that pushed me to go into it. And I had to like explain them. I was like, this is not the same profession that you think, that it was 20 years ago, even 15 years ago. Like it's very different now. And it's definitely getting a higher and higher burnout rate. So I give a lot of respect to those educators out there too.
Yeah. And of course it's not all of them, like I know my son right now feels the same way we do. Like my son is like, it's ridiculous. He feels the same way. He's like, I can't get away with things. I'm very well behaved. He's like, but it drives him nuts because there are kids that, do things. And he's like, why are these kids not getting punished for doing the wrong thing? He's like, it's absolutely ridiculous. And I'm sure Karav here as well, seeing is what he does for us in the community. I have no doubt he's the same exact way. And I'm like, so there's plenty of kids out there that are good, but why are we allowing the other ones to not be good? Back when I was growing up, maybe there was like the 5% that were like that. And now it's so much more. It's like 40%. It's overwhelming.
It 100% goes back to, we could get real deep on this rabbit hole, but it's the family, the unit. It's 100% like the outcome is just the way that child is brought up. Their upbringing determines the difference between those two scenarios you just outlined. And if you're raised a certain way, yes, it is the same. But if you're generation TikTok and the parents are just like, here, go on TikTok, you're whatever, and they're just growing up on that, I think this is where like society is kind of just losing that, especially just like broader scale, society.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Oh yeah.
I mean, like I just know like if I had kids and they did something like that, I'd be like, I'm not gonna say it on here because I might come back to regret it, but there'd be some words had.
Yes,
and, I grew up getting spanked, so I grew up in a different world. So
my mom is like the sweetest woman. Like everybody thinks she's just so nice, but she has a wooden spoon in a glass box because that's what we remember, and we fear her for a wooden spoon because that was our discipline.
Yeah, I got the belt.
Oh yeah.
You know what a lot of it goes back to too? It's funny. I was just doing another podcast earlier today, and we were talking about this, that every society has gone very cushy. Everything's gone very convenient. And this inevitably just kind of causes complacency. Amazon, I could order a sledgehammer and an eagle's beak and it's just at my doorstep. Dopamine, I just pick up my phone. Like you don't have to do a whole lot. And like we're fortunate that we're the best country in the world. But it's crazy because you think about like this conveniency. This is the outcome. Like it's just there's no two ways about it, and just the importance of reversing that, because that generation, like my family, like I kind of was raised with that like Great Depression mentality almost of like the hard work, like you work hard, and like life is not easy. Today it's just so different, and I think it's really kind of bleeds into everything, and that's where like a lot of these issues derive from.
Yeah, and you know what? This here, so Karav saying himself, I'll say this, ever since I have been going to the gym straight after school, I come home energized and feeling less stressed and ready to do homework.
That's another thing that's missing.
There was a study that went out about a decade ago, and they the first one that they had done was in a suburban area, fairly well-to-do area, and they had some of the more troubled kids come in early in the morning before school, and they had them work out together, and their performance ended up going up. And they said, well, yeah, that's a place that has more money. Let's see what goes on in an inner city. They went to an inner city place and they did the exact same study. The fights decreased by 75%. And all these kids who used to hate each other started rooting each other on. They started supporting each other. Grades started going up. They had failure rates dropping significantly. More people were graduating. Like that is a real thing. So, I'm all about that, Karav. Yeah, I would love to see more communities getting involved in just health and fitness, because that does get it up there. And of course, we're going to have our health and wealth session with Dr. Jack sometime soon, but
100%. Like I taught in inner city school districts, and that's something that, yes, it's just, this would be a clear benefit going back to what I said earlier of like, we're just missing this sense of community, of like just some sort of overarching goal, you know. And that's I mean, it's rooted in a lot of different things. But what else do they do in schools? So like less and less people we know are exercising, but what are they cutting? Recess. You don't need to have phys ed anymore, gym, you know. And so these kids just sit there for 8 hours a day, and that's not natural either.
Yeah, that's wild to me. I mean, man, well, do you guys? Well, I know Tim does or did. I mean,
I'm
I'm
on
pretty
a
sure you're pretty big into fitness.
I'm on the getting fat and relaxing period right now. I'm taking a break
Hibernating.
I'm taking a break from my 10 years of beating the crap out of myself with super long, hard endurance races.
Okay. What about you, Vinny? Do you do anything?
Yeah, you know, it's funny. I was much more active, like everyone, before COVID, and then they literally locked the basketball court. So I had the COVID-15, but over the past 6 months to a year, I'm getting my life back together. I've lost like 30 pounds, and I'm going to sign up to do a 5K soon. I've never run a race in my life, but yeah, working out and I got to say, like, cannot stress this enough. If you are going through anything, like, take a walk, exercise, like, these things help so much. Like, we're
Oh my
so
God.
sedentary, especially if you're
Endorphins
working from home.
endorphins are the best drug ever. And it's
Yeah.
legal
Yeah.
and healthy.
Yeah, I get asked pretty frequently, like how how do you have so much energy? How do you stay fit? How do you work so long? How do you get up so early? I mean, like all these things. And I've never been a morning person ever in my life, but I work out in the mornings. And just a little trick, and I try to tell this to as many people as I can because I heard it somewhere and it made a difference for me. I went from hating waking up in the morning to go work out to really enjoying it. And the best trick I can recommend for you is, don't wake up with the intention of going to the gym or anything in life, any goal you have, right? Don't make the goal that might be something that's got a lot of friction in it or it's hard. Don't make that the goal. Like for me in the morning, I wake up at 5:45, and when my alarm goes off, the thing I'm thinking about is, ooh, I want that cup of coffee. And that's what I'm going for, my cup of coffee. And I go and I have my cup of coffee. It's just that it's a positive thing. It's something that's so tangible, so easy. I'm not even thinking about the gym. I'm just thinking about that cup of coffee. It's the only thing I'm thinking about. And I have my cup of coffee, and I'll have a second cup of coffee, and I'll start just like stretching out while I'm watching Squawk Box on the TV. And at 7 a.m., I go to the gym. But now I'm awake, I'm primed, I've had my coffee, and I'm up and I'm ready to go. And by the time I'm done working out and I'm back, everybody's just rolling in to work or just starting to check their emails. I've already checked my email when I was stretching. I've already checked any messages. I already know what my calendar looks like for the day. And I'm in fifth gear, sixth gear, or maybe that's not the great analogy for a Tesla channel, but you get my point. So just find one little positive thing and make that the small goal to accomplish, and that'll lead you to the bigger goal. I can't stress that enough. It's something that has changed my brain in immensely. These aren't good words, but in a very positive way.
No, I like that a lot. And you got to just make it not a chore, and you got to look at the why of like, what am I doing this for?
Yeah.
And
you also got to make it not a choice. It can't be a choice. That's something else you can't stress enough. Fitness, your health, it's not a choice.
Yeah.
All right. It's either you're in shape, like there's a scale. All right. I do CrossFit, so I'm a little biased when I say this, but this applies to life. There's a scale. There's sick, there's just good, normal health, and then there's healthy. In order to get the sick, you have to go past normal. So remember that, like with anything in life, like if you're a multimillionaire, well, you got to pass 1 million before you go to broke. Like you have these levels of things. So if you can make sure you prioritize your health now, the way you eat, your exercise, your movement, then when you're older, man, you're not going to have all these hospital bills. You're not going to be sitting there looking at fluorescent light and just not being with your family. Like I can't even imagine a life like that. Like you don't see a lot of people who are overweight and out of shape who are old in age. And I'm not trying to be on a pedestal here, but I truly, truly believe in health, and everybody should really take it serious.
You're
That's
definitely
all.
right.
Stop.
You're definitely right. And like, I would just add, going back to what we said before, there's a fantastic book called The Miracle Morning. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but highly recommend it. Everybody should read it. And it's especially if you're someone who wants to kickstart your day and you need something to get you in that routine, it's a fantastic read. And it's all just about basically however much time you got to work with, squeezing in some exercise, reading, and a few other things that just kickstart your day so that when 9 a.m. comes around and everybody else just, getting out of bed, getting on their laptop, on their Zoom meeting, yeah, like you just said earlier, you're already in sixth gear, Nicholas, like same kind of thing. Like you're just on. If you do nothing after work because you're too tired, you were productive in the morning. You did your exercise, you did your reading, so that's something I try and do every day too.
Yeah. When I was doing it, that was the big thing for me was get up and do it. And reeling it back over to Tesla again is because of working out, your emotions are a lot more steady. You don't get emotional swings when you are working out. So for those of you who are out there and you're dealing with these very difficult times, obviously in the stock market, watching your portfolio go dark red, if you are working out, it keeps you level-headed. You will make a lot less emotional decisions because you have done this. You start your day off with the hardest thing possible, which is a ridiculously hard workout. And then you like everything else over the course of the day seems easier. Like, oh, Tesla stock is down 5%. That's no problem. I did my hard workout this morning. I'm feeling great right now. No big deal. Those endorphins change your mindset significantly. And when you start doing it repetitively and you get into a habit of it, that becomes the norm for you. And you never end up feeling like that. And then you can eat whatever you want for Thanksgiving. And it's great.
Yeah, I'll stop talking about this because like now I want to talk about Elon and intermittent fasting.
Oh yeah,
maybe we'll have to do another one just with talking about these type of topics.
Well, Nick, we'll have you on for the health and wealth session because this is perfect for that.
Okay,
so
yeah, I'd love
somebody
to join
on
that.
here, if you guys want to check, I can't see it anywhere. Somebody mentioned a buyback was just announced, so I don't know if this is just TM. I don't know if that's actually real, but if you guys want to check on that, I don't know for sure. So guys, there's no confirmation yet. I'm just going by what we're seeing in the comments here. Maybe he was trying to stop us from talking about health and fitness.
Let me see. There's
3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
There's nothing on IR. I mean, I imagine you guys are already looking at Twitter.
Yeah, I didn't look at Twitter yet. No.
Oh, let's see.
And then while we're looking that up, Lena, that's why we can appreciate Elon's hardcore expectations of his employees because of our different upbringing. And that's so true. We all have different upbringings and Elon being as hardcore as he is, I'm actually amazed that he is the way he is without working out. So now that he is working out, him working 120 hours a week,
animal.
It's nothing for him to work 120 hours a week now.
It was that trip on the boat really got to him. He was like,
seriously, what's your body shape, Cybertruck? Seriously, that was literally what he looked like, was the Cybertruck.
All right. Well, whoever said that, they definitely trolled us because I don't see anything.
We just got rickrolled.
That's fine. Hey, it reeled us back over to Tesla. That's all good.
Yeah.
Thanks to him for that. I mean, I do see it coming. So, speaking about a buyback, I think it's coming. I don't know, and the thing about it, and I remember Gary Black had gone into it to discuss the legalities behind Elon selling and literally Tesla buying back Elon shares and how it is. He said, as long as they disclose it all, there's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. So Elon knowing what he's going to be selling, obviously it makes no sense for Tesla to buy anything back until Elon finishes selling, and Elon's going to know when he's done selling. So maybe that would be a great indication to let us know when he's done selling because Tesla's going to buy back.
Yeah. What do you think about all the sales? Because I think it adds another perceived risk factor to people maybe who follow less closely. How many times, I get it. I get it's unforeseen things are coming up, but how many times, he's going to keep selling now after he said, I'm done selling. And that's not instilling confidence. And I feel like Tesla right now is in the last real hump between really achieving world dominance versus still at a little bit of risk is where I feel like we're at right now. Are these things helping?
Did you guys actually take it that way? Did you actually take it being I'm done selling forever in perpetuity?
No, I mean, I didn't care. I'm just saying I just feel like I was going to mention this earlier just to kind of gauge how effective these headlines and stuff are. The last couple of weeks, especially last week, I feel like I'm Tesla's PR person because everybody I know, friends and family, is coming to me, messaging me, calling me, freaking out. What is this? What's happening? If you don't follow this stuff closely, you see enough of these factors combined, and I think that's part of the strategy to shake people out. But it is legitimate. Like you put enough of these reasons together, and I think that's where people who aren't following as closely are, getting scared.
Yeah, and I know for me, like I didn't care. Like if he's going to sell, as Elon said, hey, if I'm selling, it's a great buying opportunity. This is what we went through last year. We've done it many a times. And then watching the live stream with Farzad and Gary and Ross and Alexandra the other day, Gary said the same thing. He was like, you know what? He's like, when he said he's done selling, he meant for that tranche. That was it. Hey, I'm done selling for right now. Yeah, it's Elon shares. He could do what he wants. And thinking about the fact that he sold like, what was it, 20 million shares out of his 470 million. Like, give the guy a break. Let him do his thing. And as far as I'm concerned, if Elon doesn't have as many shares, there's more people out there having it, then we don't have to worry about Elon selling as many shares because he doesn't have as many.
Yeah. I thought it was pretty obvious that he meant that he was done selling at that time. I mean, to presume anything else just seems kind of ludicrous to me. I mean, he's gonna have to sell again. He's eventually have to pay taxes. I mean, like it's like this is just a given. But the only thing I care about as far as him selling is that I feel like, and if he, all right, so everybody's complaining that he isn't telling us that he's done selling. Well, he can't until the Form 4s are out. So, I mean, last time he said I'm done after the last Form 4 came out. He literally said it like almost immediately after.
Right.
So that tells you that there's probably more Form 4s to come out, or he saw how everybody saw like he said he was done, and he's like, all right, I'm not gonna say anything because these people don't know how to, just take my words for what they are. Like it doesn't, like people are adding their own spin to it, but look, put Tesla to the side. Anytime a CEO, anytime anyone on the C-suite sells shares, it's a bad look for a company. It shows that you don't have confidence in the company. Now, again, we're all different because we follow it so well and we know the idiosyncrasies of it. We know why he's selling shares. We get what's going on. The same way we understand Shanghai was down for almost 2 months, and that's why the numbers aren't going to be what they are. But there are a lot of people who invest out there who don't follow. There's a lot of firms who just don't care. They don't care. Like, I don't care if you're buying Twitter. If anything, that just shows me that you don't care about selling your shares, that you're willing to sell everything and buy something else. And if you really thought that it was going to be that valuable this soon, you wouldn't be selling. Like, right? Like, if anything, you would do whatever you can to take even more debt just to wait until FSD goes wide release and it's $4 trillion company. But you're not doing that. You're selling now. So what does that say? So, like, you have to understand both sides, I think. But my biggest thing is if or when he's done selling, I feel like he owes it to a lot of the investors who's been in the stock for a long time through 2018, through all these almost bankruptcies. I think he owes it to the investors, but you can't say that he isn't doing the right thing yet because we still don't know if there's more Form 4s that come out and he legally can't say anything. So I think be patient. Let's see what happens. Let's give it another week and we'll see where we are from there.
Yeah. And my thoughts on it are, I'm pretty good at understanding people and looking at Elon and just how excited we see him get when he wants to give information but can't. And thinking about the poll that he made up last year for when he was going to be selling all those shares initially is, I want to say, because of what happened in 2018 and everything with the SEC, if Elon was allowed to, he would just say, hey, everyone, by the way, I'm going to be selling shares for a little while, just so you know. But he can't because he's not allowed to. And of course, if he did that as well, came out and said that, then everybody would sell out before he did. And that would just be a crash in the stock. But, like, that's the kind of guy he is. I think he would legitimately just tell us, by the way, this is what's going to be going on. I just can't tell you.
Yeah. I just wish we knew why he sells the way he's selling. Like, he doesn't have to do it this way in the open market. So I wish we could get some understanding around that.
I know. And I know I was talking to Alexandra about that too. And she said the same thing. She's like, why is he not just doing it, the way everybody else does it? And my only thought is because he feels like he is and wants to show that he is a man of the people, because none of us have the ability to trade and sell like CEOs do. We can only do it the way he is doing it right now. So if that's the case, he's like, hey, I'm one of you guys. I am a retail investor just like the rest of you. I'm going to buy and sell just like retail investors do. That's just my thought. But of course, we don't know for sure because Elon won't talk to me right now. So he's mad at me.
I know. Yeah. So are you guys both verified?
Yes.
Not yet.
Yeah. I can't. I don't know why. Like, there's no Twitter Blue for me.
Really? How'd you try
Yeah.
to? Did you upgrade or did you not upgrade yet?
Yeah. I upgraded. There's nothing.
There's no check mark at all.
No, like there's no Twitter Blue option at all.
So there was something that I saw last night with Twitter Blue going down. So I don't know if that's still the case because I did mine the other day, but I heard something about Twitter Blue is down. So I
Yeah.
don't know the details on that. I didn't look into it. But
Yeah. So I got a question for you guys, unless you have something else lined up.
What's up?
Yeah. So let's say we think big picture here, or longer term. Let's say 2030, because that seems to be a target everybody has had for a while now. What are your predictions for Tesla stock price around 2030, roughly? And in that estimate, what do you assume is part of that? What makes it up?
So the way I've looked at it is, I mean, it's you have to just have multiple models, but the base case to me would be worst case, maybe bear case. Tesla sells 10 million cars. And off that alone, I believe Kevin actually had a pretty good video on it recently, just kind of showing you if they made like 150 billion in gross automotive margin, that it's like a 3x. Or maybe this was like 2026, but let's just say this is my bear case for 2030. Maybe it's like a 3x like that. That's FSD is still not solved or rolled out mainstream. That's no bot. That's basically just with the cars and like nothing changing. But I think that if autopilot truly is what we think it can be, and you get robo taxis and all these things, I don't know that you can come anywhere close to like realistically valuing that. And like how he keeps alluding to in these calls of like, think about in history, there's never been a time where you're selling a product that's worth X, let's say $50,000 around their average sale price. You flip a switch, right? Obviously they've been doing R&D for all these years, but you flip a switch and it's now worth 5 times as much value because of the benefits that can come from the robotaxi. We've never had anything in the history of humanity that you flip that switch and happens. So I think that's where things get insane. And like, I can't even think about how where it could be at, but bear case is we just have like the 10 million vehicles, I would say.
Yeah, for me, I look at it and very much like the keep it simple, stupid. I go by what Tesla has told us what their goals are. That's how I value my base case. What are Tesla's goals? Tesla's goals are going to have FSD solved. They're going to have robo taxis on the road. They're going to have possibly 20 million. And I knock it down to my base case of 15 million vehicles being delivered in 2030. And, I've got energy ramping up, but not really taking off significantly because we haven't seen it yet. I don't even really have Optimus in there. It's very minute. It barely even touches it. So I've got a price target of $7,000 for 2030 based on really realistically just vehicles and a little bit of FSD. That's it.
And how many vehicle sales?
15 million.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you guys are all in on Tesla.
69. Well, 67% now at the fallback, but I was at 69%.
I'm at 80%. What
Okay.
about you?
I outside of real estate, yeah, I only have Tesla. So with that said, with your 2030 projections, whatever that stock price is, or market, let's just say market cap, whatever that market cap is 2030 is that where you guys have your own? I imagine you guys have financial goals that you're trying to hit, and is 2030 when you would hit that, assuming the price targets you're going for, or is there a different time frame?
Just as far as like financial freedom.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, whatever your goal is, I mean, like me, I still work. I've been financially independent for a while now, but I have too much. Like, I mean, I look at the world like, can I retire? I don't know how Farzad does it. I talked to Farzad about this. I was like, man, you got balls. Like, I can't. I just can't yet. So
for me, I live a very simple life. Like I plan when my kid graduates high school, I'm going to go live the van life. I have no problems with that. I love traveling. I love adventure. I don't need things. And when I travel, despite the fact that I love Tesla, I'm going to be, once I get real estate under my belt, I'm probably going to be 100% all in on Tesla. That's not going to be my only source of income. And it's just wise to be diversified in any way. So for me, I'm going to be traveling around. I'm going to travel the world, and I'm going to buy different real estate all over the world, and I'll have my income coming in that way. So my financial freedom really isn't dependent upon Tesla stock itself, but I do track that because I would love to be a Teslaionaire someday. So for me, that's around 2027 right now, based upon my income and how much I'm investing. So 2030 for me is my goal for buying that castle I want over in Italy and turning that into an Airbnb where people can get off of the airplane, get into their robo-taxi, have that robo-taxi with a bottle of champagne in it, drive them to my castle, and give them a tour along the way.
Very niche. That'll do really well.
Yeah. But Optimus is giving them the tour, right?
Correct. Well, so the robo-taxi, so you'll have your choice. So I've got this grandiose plan. So you're going to get off, and when you book your whole thing, you're going to say, do I want music? Do I want a tour? What do I want? What do I want for alcohol in there? So you're literally going to get in your robo-taxi and have whatever you want it to be doing for you in the robo-taxi, driving you to where you need to go. And then, yes, I will have Optimus all over the castle as your own personal butler.
Nice. What about you, Vinny? Is this like financial goals? I mean, you don't have to talk numbers, but like,
yeah. I think the way I see it is the amount of Tesla I have today. If what I believe comes to fruition by 2030, I'll never have to worry about money again in my life. What would that mean, though? I think I would go the route of just being financially independent, but working on what I love. I mean, I just do this YouTube stuff because I love it. Like, it's not paying much, you know, it's just a fun time. Like, I like looking into companies. Like, I'm going to have to be working, and like, I definitely have some goals of what I want to do, but that's the plan, I think, for right now.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'll answer my own questions. So 2030, I had for a long time been thinking that Tesla will get to a $10 trillion market cap by 2030. I've now reframed. So eventually, my whole thing is whenever I can live off of Tesla because it's generating more income than what I do for work. All right, at that point, it's kind of like, all right, how do you keep working? But I love what I do, and I love my team. So it's, you know, it's hard for me to like just stop working. Like the people are great, the team's great, and I enjoy it. So, but then the question becomes, okay, well, I could have all of that income from Tesla plus my work, and like that's a whole different lifestyle. You know, so so that becomes kind of hard to walk away from. But for that, like you guys follow the FIRE movement at all?
Yeah.
No. Okay. So FIRE stands for financial independence, retire early.
Oh, so, yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So I mean, like the person who like really probably blew that up is somebody called Mr. Money Mustache.
Yes, the OG.
Yeah. And so I had a goal of financial independence after like I discovered him and like the Mad Scientist, like all these people.
Bigger Pockets podcast.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And so I had like this goal. I was like, all right, this is gonna be my goal. And I was young. I was like maybe like I was just coming out of college as an engineer, and those guys are engineers. I'm like, oh, look at this. It's like my people. And so then I hit that. And then I realized, okay, I want more than financial independence. I want like what they call fat fire now. Fat fire is like, you know, extravagant financial independence. And so that's my goal. But so anyways, I'm like ranting here. My whole point is when Elon told Ron Barron that he sees about a $4.5 trillion value, that's where I kind of redid all my math. And I said, okay, I need to be able to have enough shares to hit fat fire on a $4.5 trillion market cap. And so I use that as the market cap. And so how many shares do I need to own to have fat fire at that number? So essentially I cut all my numbers in half, and I said, okay, well, let's assume they don't get the 10 trillion. Let's say they only get the 4.5. All right. Well, that means I need twice the amount of shares. And so the cool thing about that is like, I've completely rewired my mind now ever since that interview. And now I'm like, oh, we got to be frugal now. Like we got to be real frugal. We got so many shares we need to acquire. We're not even close. We got to double what we got. So
then the
I
great
thought
thing,
I was good, but now I'm trying to double it. So that's where I'm
oh
at.
yeah,
Anyways.
and then the great thing about that is if we do end up getting to that 10 trillion,
Oh,
you're
yeah,
just double where you wanted to be anyway, and that's insane. And of
exactly.
course, he did say that's 4.5 trillion without even Optimus being included in that. So who knows what's going to happen? And now, so Elon did say that we could potentially see Optimus in households in the next 3 to 5 years. What do you guys think about that? Do you think that's realistic?
100%. Go, Vinny. What do you think?
In like a mass scale, if they solve full FSD and it's as easily to transfer over, yes. If FSD is taking longer, I think they'll definitely be working in the factories and doing really useful stuff there. I don't know about like the houses stuff though, but if everything like proceeds on the trajectory we think it will, like the bull case, then yeah, definitely.
I think it's the most obvious thing. All right, so here's where I kind of contradict myself sometimes, but it's only if you look at it from a high level perspective. I don't think Optimus, like even by 2030, will be able to do that amount of like amazing things. Like I don't think it'll be able to make your bed, for example. I don't think it'll get there. I think that's going to take a long, long time to get to something like that, right?
Complex
Like to do
type
hospital
tasks.
corners, yeah, right. To like a lot of things that take dexterity. I think a
Hands
lot of
are
that's
gonna
going to
be
take a
like
while.
that, like for a while.
Yeah,
Like
maybe. Yeah,
no,
but
they're gonna be
so
good. They'll be
It can fold a fitted sheet as well as we can.
exactly right. Stuff like that. That's my point. Exactly. Like the things that are tricky for a human, right?
right.
Like what's not tricky for us is like watering plants, me grabbing this bottle, me emptying the dishwasher, and
The
so
Roomba vacuuming, I feel
yeah,
like shouldn't be that difficult.
Rosie the
no, I
robot, yeah.
agree. And so what I see happening, and again, this is why I think it's the most obvious thing. FSD. Let's say FSD doesn't happen as like we go wide release, but it's still not ready for robo taxis. I guarantee you, Optimus will be out there before robo taxis end.
That's
Like,
a
let's say
great
if there's
point.
FSD doesn't have to be solved for Optimus because I can sell you an Optimus, and the only thing it can do is transfer your clothes from the washer to the dryer and hit the button. Okay, well, I've got all the hardware there already. Okay. But I can over time send you updates. Okay. Well, now we can do this. Now we can do that. And who knows? Maybe you need a hardware update in the future, just like FSD did. But it's a matter of changing out a couple parts. It's not a whole or rethink of the entire thing. But you don't have to worry about safety, really. I mean, to an extent, you do, I guess. Like you don't want it falling down stairs and crushing a kid. But like you're going slow. You don't have to worry about safety. It can do 1 or 3 or 5 tasks decently that buys back time for you, and you can get that out there, and then you get it to learn and you get more data from the world. I mean, like it's such an easier thing to scale, in my opinion.
That's
Yeah.
true because you think about like, an iPhone. iPhone 6 is now starting to become that obsolete phone, but any other iteration from there on, you just get software updates. And sure, it may not run as well as the newer phones, but it's still going to function, it's still going to do its thing. You don't need to buy a new phone because you're just going to get that update and you're going to keep on getting all the newest, latest, greatest things from it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
in tech. Oh, go ahead.
it's like yeah, it's moving slow, so in theory like it should actually be easier to solve for like 100% versus FSD, especially when it comes to the simple tasks. But what's even more interesting to me is I'm thinking about now, is Tesla just going to repeat the same path? They have the recipe for success, and like you can argue that investment in Tesla is just an investment in the Gigafactory. It's going to produce whatever's needed, and now they take the same approach where, let's say, I don't know, 2-3 years from now, maybe even sooner, they come out with the first version, which is like the equivalent to like the Roadster, premium, very high, class like product, very expensive, and then funnel that into Model Y and Model 3 of the Roadster. And slowly over time, they have the recipe. They just have to do what they've already done with a new product. So they know how to do that. I wonder if and then, so if you look at it that way, then yes, we could see one in someone's house, like probably a lot sooner than people realize.
So 2 thoughts on that. So first of all, and Andre Kapasi alluded to this a little bit on his Lex Friedman interview, but with tech companies, there's something called an MVP that you always try to get out there. An MVP stands for minimal viable product. All right. And you want to get that out there as fast as possible into the market. Some companies call it a minimal lovable product, right? Something that people are going to love. It may not be able to do everything, but it's good enough there. Good night.
Moose.
But so I think Tesla wants to get something out there quickly, and Andre talked about that, right? Like you need it not so much for the company, but for the people working on it. They need those dopamine hits, like, oh, look how cool this is. We got that out there. We saw the FSD. But I think instead of the Roadster to SNX, I think you might see them start off with a SNX like instead of the like if Roadster's up here, it might start with SNX. Why? Well, because with the vehicles, Tesla needed to sell those vehicles, right? With Optimus, Tesla can build a lot more in scale and sell them to themselves. They couldn't do that with the cars. So Tesla can be consumers of it, and they have a reason to build more mass because they will use it. Whereas with the cars, they didn't have that. Like they had to start at that Roadster level. So maybe they start with the SNX type level. For that analogy, they have a big customer called Tesla, and then they can also sell to consumers. So I think there's a lot of different gamification you can do there.
At their slowest, they were the most efficient producer over time, became the best manufacturer. Now they're just accelerating that process. The other people, yeah.
And then I think, of course, Elon said himself, they're going to have them in the factories first. So what's going to end up happening is they're going to put Optimus in the factories. They're going to show how it is. All of a sudden, Tesla's financials start coming in stronger. Margins are higher. Costs are lower. They're producing more. Their production rate is going up because they're using Optimus. And all of a sudden, people are like, ooh, I want an Optimus. So we're going to see a lot more people. I think it's going to end up going to other companies similar to like the Semi. Pepsi's buying the Semi. So we're going to see a lot of other manufacturers purchasing Optimus first to go into their warehouses. Then they're going to have enough of the information coming in from the FSD because, as Andre had said, when it came to Optimus, they put the AI from FSD into it, and Optimus thought it was a car. So they're going to have to get that real world sensory perception of the AI data coming in from a humanoid standpoint. Once they get that down from the factories, they're basically going to have like FSD beta in Optimus in all these factories. Then once they get to that good point, then they're like, all right, now we can go wide release, start putting it into people's homes.
Here's another interesting use case for Optimus. Is it possible that we know full self-driving, it's at the March of Nines. I mean, it's much better in some places than others, but we see the progression. And you have to get to some point where we're going to get into it with regulations and, do you need Lidar? Do you need this? Could Optimus function as that backup, that second layer, sitting in the car and being, for the FSD fails, having another monitor with vision? It's going to have vision that can react accordingly. Eventually, is that a workaround for FSD's March of Nine?
No, because if they could do that with Optimus, then they would just use that same tech in the car.
Well, I'm just saying if Optimus is behind though, and like FSD is like 99% effective, but they won't allow it, could Optimus then, instead of Lidar, you use Optimus? I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud here.
I think that's an unnecessary thing. But to your point, though, I think if seeing as they're making FSD in cars like it's a human, if they end up getting data coming in from Optimus that ends up giving them different data that they can end up utilizing in the vehicles because it is seeing from a human's perspective, that might be something that they use and cross over between the two to make FSD better.
Maybe it wouldn't be so much. If anything, it'd be more so just labeling of objects,
right?
More so than anything. I mean, because a lot of it depends on location of cameras, where they are in relation to the vehicle, the amount of cameras, how you stitch them together. There's really, you don't need to remove any of the compression algorithms that are built into cameras for Optimus, whereas for the cars, you kind of need to bypass that. So, but the real benefit, if there's any, I would say would just be the ability to leverage more labeled data that the neural nets understand, like, oh, that's a trash bag, where with FSD, you don't really need to know that level of detail that, oh, that's a trash bag in the road. But maybe now, because Optimus needs to know, I need the trash bag to put in the trash can. All right, now I know more things. So from that perspective, sure. But
essentially, it can only help, Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And actually, Nick, you can do this because you're an engineer. So one of my really good friends, he does a lot of QA. They're doing a lot of great software work. And his pushback for FSD and not wanting to get into it is because of a lack of redundancies. So, and I haven't gone into a lot of the stuff because I don't know well enough because I'm not an engineer. So, like watching AI Day 2, I'm like, it's over my head. So, what can you say about the lack of redundancies when it comes to the information and data that's coming in and the safety behind FSD?
Information and data coming in?
Yeah, so for him, so his pushback is like we've seen, people saying we need radar and lidar to go along with the cameras. He's like, if your cameras are the only thing that you are seeing and have data coming in from, and there's no redundancies of the lidar coming in to say, hey, this is another piece of information we need to communicate. And as I explained to him, I was like, they found that, it actually contradicts each other and it makes it even worse and it's a crutch and it slows it down. But him, and I don't know if it's just because, again, not being an engineer, I don't know if it's his old school thinking of this is what you need to have versus what Tesla currently has.
Yeah, no. Okay. So it is shocking to me that people like still talk about LiDAR at all at this point. So, all right. So what is LiDAR? LiDAR is essentially sending out light and having it come back, bouncing off, and it's trying to understand, I got these amount of spots on this object. I think this object is this. And when I say I think it's this, it means like a very generalized shape of what that thing is. The problem with, I don't want to say problem, the reason we don't have autonomous vehicles, it's not because we can't see the world. That's not why at all. The problem is the decision making of the software and understanding what the world is around it. It's just like the reason a 5-year-old can't drive a car isn't because they don't have enough radars and they can't see. No, it's because they don't have an understanding of the world and how to make a decision in time yet. And that's what the car is doing. It's it's all about the software. It's the neural nets at that point. All right. So there's this big misconception about this. Like, we don't have an issue with taking in the world. That's not an issue at all. The reason people use LiDAR is because people didn't know how to take in images and label images and have software be able to differentiate, hey, this is a cat, that's a dog. Can I tell the difference? And sometimes a dog can kind of look like a cat. And sometimes cats can look many different types of ways, and then you don't know if it's a cat, right? So this was a very, very big AI problem to solve. And Tesla essentially solved this, right? To the point where they have it just kind of, this mechanism that takes care of itself, right? It's its own loop that it's like a spiral staircase. It just gets better and better, slowly going up. So that's not the problem. It's taking in information. Like LiDAR, I'm not saying that some people won't succeed with it, sure, but it's just another way of seeing. It's all it is. It's a worse way of seeing. So that should not even be an argument. You need the real world
AI. It has to know how to make a decision.
Exactly. I don't need more eyes. I need a better brain, and that's what we're doing here. Now, as far as the redundancy, you can make an argument for what happens if one of the cameras go out. Okay, you can make an argument for that. If one of the cameras go out, the car can still drive just fine. There's no issues, right? Like, really, the most important cameras are the ones that are facing forward. Those are really the most important. But it'll still drive just fine. It'll give you a warning, and if it's like a robo-taxi situation, it will probably pull over to the side, and you'll have like text that come out and just swap it out real quick. It doesn't take long to swap these cameras out. As far as the computer itself, they're already redundant in the car. Everything in the car essentially has to be redundant as it is, right? So, but they already have 2 full self-driving computers in there that they're actually. So, if you guys understand networking at all, the way they run those computers is an active setup. So they can leverage all of the compute across both computers. But if one were to go down, the other one can suffice to control everything. But they run them active so that, they can like essentially reduce the load and they balance it out. But so, yeah, I don't think any of that's an issue. The limiting factor with full self-driving right now is it's just the neural nets. It's just the software, and it's really close. I mean, it's a lot closer than I think a lot of people think it is. I know a lot of people still have interventions and takeovers and whatever, but it's one of those things where like it's these step changes that keep happening. And if you don't realize like how close it is, beginning of this year, like January, the only person we ever heard of, a zero disengagement drive was Omar. Now, go on YouTube. Look how many people talk about zero disengagement drives, and that's in less than a year.
Yeah, and then I think about, when we go to wide release right now, and as I was explaining to a lot of people, it's just how much data is coming in. Whoever has the most data coming in is going to be able to solve it the fastest. And nobody has data coming in faster than Tesla. And when they go wide release, that's even more data, especially when they get over to Europe, because it's different stuff that we don't see here in the US. So they're going to have so much more data coming in from everywhere to be able to solve these problems even faster. And like you said, they've got the auto labeling loop already going, run it through Dojo. Yeah, I mean, you can solve this relatively quickly once they go wide release.
Well, all right. So here's something else that I think is a big misconception. Yes, data matters. The more data you have, the better, right? Okay. That's not actually what matters. The reason we want so much data is so that we can train on that data. What really matters, and what's the hardest thing that very few people talk about is being able to take all this data and make sense of the data. All right. Think about wherever you guys work. You guys probably have shared files in your network drives that have so much crap in there, and you don't delete it because, well, it might be important. You don't know what's in here, and it may be important in the future, but you don't really know how to make sense of everything, and it might be valuable, right? So imagine that just orders of magnitudes scaled, right? I have all this data. Cool. I have all this data. GM, Ford, they could have all of Tesla's data. But if you don't know how to make use of it, if you don't know how to take that and distill it into what matters, if you don't know how to refine that data, it's useless. And that is what Andre Karpathy was there to work on. That was what Project Vacation was, and that's what they got to. That is the machine that builds the machine, essentially. And that is what nobody else has. So it's more than just the data. The data is like part of it, yes. And they don't even have that part, let alone the mechanism to take all that data and make it into something that's really valuable. Like that, like this is why, like, you see people like all these, like, again, like Lex, like Andre, like James Dalma, they get so geeked out about this because it's like, guys, this is happening. Like, it's actually happening. Like, you don't understand, but it's.
And that's what I pay attention to also, is like the guys who truly do know, like, how excited are they for this? It's like, these guys know really what's going on. And they're like, this is happening. And like you said, you can have the data, but it's like, you can have the tools to do the job. But if you don't know how to use the tools, it's not going to matter.
Exactly. I can give you a Home Depot, but if you don't know that you need a Phillips for that Phillips screwdriver, or if you don't know you need a torque wrench, or if you don't, like, then who cares? Like, does it matter?
Oh, yeah. All right, boys, we've been on for almost 2 hours here. This has been awesome. Thank you, Nick, for being on. Thank you, Vinny, again, for being on here as well. This has been awesome. And I'll definitely have you guys both on as well. We will be doing a health and wealth coming up very soon with Dr. Jack, my buddy Pedro. So if you guys are available, we'll coordinate it all. We'll have us on there. Is there anything else you guys want to share with the community here?
I'll just close it with thank you for your service, Nicholas, and thank you. Happy Veterans Day to everyone who served out there.
Yeah, and I'll apologize for taking the conversation to different topics. It's
by all means, you were the guest tonight. You're totally welcome to do whatever you want.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, I like to take these opportunities to, like, I know we're streaming, but I like to meet people. And you said you were a teacher. It's like, oh, well, that's interesting. Like, I get curious about it. So I like to dive down these avenues.
Oh, yeah. I have no problems with segues. That's always good stuff to find out. Because that's one of the things I like too, is, you guys as a community, like, yeah, we talk about Tesla, but we're all individuals as well. Just because we love Tesla doesn't mean that's all we're all about. So it's awesome to learn what you guys are about on a personal level also.
It is funny that I tend to get along best with the other Tesla people. I don't know. There's something, there's some chemistry there.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right.
No, I just last word. I just want to say to everybody, like, thank you, Tim and Vinny. It's a pleasure to meet you guys, like, in person. Thank you for having me on. Thank you to all the vets out there, and thank you to everybody who's still holding on to their Tesla shares so that we don't keep going down. And the future is bright, and believe in that, right? Because there's no point of not. Be optimistic.
Yes, absolutely. And if you guys don't follow them already, subscribe to Vinny over at Investment Club and Nicholas over at Investing Against the Grain. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you all later.